Welcome to 101. I'm Lorna Virgili, and in this particular show we have a very good surprise this time around. We're actually going to sit with two department heads from Montgomery County, and the first one is Gabe Albornoz, who is the director of the Department of Recreation. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the very first time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's get started right away.
Right.
The Department of Recreation, $24 million your budget, correct?
That's correct.
You are going to have to cut back about 2% for FY13.
That's right.
And that is equivalent to approximately $600,000, correct?
Close to that, yes.
So tell us how you're going to do it.
Well, the department has obviously been as creative as it can be to go through our budget reductions to this point. We've had to cut back services. We've had to make some very painful decisions, which have included the elimination of some programs and the scaling back of the hours of operation at all of our facilities. But we've also increased fees, which has been another way that we've offset some of those reductions. But we've thought of some creative solutions as well. So the news hasn't been all bad. We've been able to secure grants through third-party funding sources, and we've also been able to leverage a lot of programs and services through partnerships, which in some cases have actually allowed us to enhance programs and services to the community. So while the reductions have been challenging, we're doing a lot to overcome those, but we are looking at another round, and so there will likely be some impact to program service delivery, but the good news is it's not anything near what we've had to face over the last couple of years, and so I don't think the community will be seeing very much visibly in the form of reductions this year.
Now, the last time you and I had a conversation and talked about your department and the challenges that you've had, as many other departments, let's say all departments in the county for the last few years due to the economic challenging times, you talked about these creative ways that you just mentioned now. What else have you been implementing in order to continue providing services to two particular communities, the senior community and the youth community?
Well, programs, positive youth development and program enhancement for seniors have been two priorities of this administration. And so we have focused a lot of our time and energy in making sure that we provide valuable out-of-school time programs and services, especially for our more at-risk populations of youth that live in communities where you do have parents working multiple jobs and where kids are home alone a lot more than in other communities. And so we have been partnering with other community-based organizations,
give us an example.
Organizations. This summer we had a very successful partnership that was funded by the Commonweal Foundation that brought a number of arts-based organizations to round out our basic summer fun center program at the Long Branch Community Center. And so as a result of these additional funds, the kids were treated to our base of programs, which includes supervised play all day long, 5 days per week, about 8.5 hours each day. But in addition to that, through these funds, we were able to bring in Arts on the Block and a number of other organizations that provided academic assistance and really high quality arts-based programming that the kids would otherwise have not had the opportunity to receive. So it was a very successful partnership in that regard.
When you're making these decisions, and of course you're talking recreation countywide, needs in areas, let's say like Bethesda, might be a little different than perhaps in Olney, the other side of town. How do you assess the need and the challenges in order to make these programs stay and continue, basically? Sometimes for the parents that live, let's say, in the northeastern part of the county, they feel that the programs in their school are not as varied, let's say, as perhaps in the lower part of the county. So how do you make these assessments?
Sure, that's an excellent question. We do not necessarily have a one-size-fits-all program service delivery approach. And by that I mean we do offer programs that we have seen traditionally and historically have been more important or have been more effective in various communities. And so our program service delivery really reflects the historical use of our facilities and the programs people have taken advantage of. But having said that, we are always interested in figuring out, again, creative ways of enhancing programs in communities that just because a program may not go in the eastern part of the county that would go in the down part of the county, is it the price point? Is the program taking advantage of multiculturalism? Is it a program that really fits the needs of the communities that it's serving? And so once you take in all those factors into account, that's how we essentially decide which programs we're going to offer.
When we come back, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, let's start thinking about this. The Youth Advisory Committee, senior programs, and also spring and summer programs coming up the remainder of the year. We're going to take a small break. Don't go away. We'll be right back with the Department of Recreation Director, Gabe Albornoz. Welcome back to One-on-One. I'm Lorna Virgili, and today we're talking with the Director of the Department of Recreation, Gabe Albornoz. We were just talking about programs, how difficult it is for your department to make these decisions as far as where the funding and the programs are going to go, because it is a very diverse county. Now, let's talk about programs for seniors. If there is a vocal voice in this community, is the senior community. I have attended many of the town hall meetings with the county executive as well as the budget meetings, and they're always there advocating for the programs, be it within your department or the health department, etc. So what are you providing for seniors today? What are the challenges coming up for next fiscal year? And how are you going to deal with it? Because this community will let you know.
Well, we're very fortunate. We have a very strong senior advisory group. The Commission on Aging has chosen recreation recently as one of its top priorities to advocate for moving forward, and we've been so appreciative of that because the second largest demographic we serve within the department are seniors, and we serve them in a variety of different ways. We do have 4 standalone facilities, senior centers that obviously exclusively serve the senior population and are very important facilities within the fabric of the communities that they reside. But the good news is that our senior programming goes beyond the wonderful programs that we have within our senior centers. Seniors are taking advantage of our aquatics facilities in very large numbers. They're also coming out to our community recreation centers, and we have been doing a lot more to really enhance programming for our younger seniors, our boomers, who are obviously now the fastest growing demographic in the county. And so we feel that we as a department are well positioned to handle the needs and the interests of that particular community, and we're doing a lot to make sure that our infrastructure can sustain programs moving forward.
We're talking about you serve approximately 75,000 seniors every year, correct?
That's correct.
And any foreseeable changes in programs for FY13 that you're working in this budget? And I don't want to put you in the hot seat right now because you still have to go through the process of submitting your budget to the county executive and so forth. But anything that we should know at this point that you can tell us?
Well, the good news is, again, we have over 85% of the programs that go on within our senior centers is all entirely volunteer driven. Not just the funding that goes into supporting these programs, but also the actual execution of those programs. We have a number of volunteers who are participating in speaker series and carrying out very high quality programs that a number of people are taking advantage of. But on the other end of the spectrum, the department also has revenue-based programs as well that we keep at a very modest and appropriate price point to make sure that everybody has access to those programs. And so while we have a number of programs that are free, we also have a number of programs that I think are very high quality that have a minimal cost associated with them. And we're going to see more of that in the future, partly as a result of the fiscal challenges, but partly also because that's what we've been hearing from seniors in particular. They want to take advantage of these programs and services, and they're even willing to pay for some of those programs and services. We just have to make sure that they're programs and services that they want to participate in.
Are in place. Let's talk about the Youth Advisory Committee to the County Executive. That program itself had some changes last year, again, due to budget constraints. You had the retreat with the group of youth that will be
Yes.
participating this year. So tell us, how did that go, and also how many of them are part of the program this cycle?
Sure. A lot of people don't know this, but the county executive does formally have a youth advisory committee, and it's one of the departments that falls under one of the programs that falls under the Department of Recreation. And there are approximately between 60 and 100 youth that come from all components of the county that come together and advise the executive on policy matters that are important to them. But it's more than just that. It's also an important leadership development opportunity for the youth that participate, because in addition to advising the county executive, which is critically important, they also do a phenomenal job of doing service projects and really connecting dots for youth in their communities. And so we did have our opening retreat recently, and the youth are going to be getting together between now and the end of the school year, and this will culminate in a youth summit at the end of the school year, where all youth across the county will be able to participate and have their voices heard.
For youth that are not part of this but might be interested in participating, is it too late?
It is not too late. There are still slots available in all 5 regions. The one change that you referenced that was made last year was we're going with a regional approach as opposed to just a county-wide approach to make sure that we have voices heard from all segments of the community.
We're almost getting ready to finalize our segment with you, but before you go away, spring registration for spring programs and summer programs. Tell us a little bit about it.
Our Spring Bride just recently went out, and so we are now taking registrations for our spring programs, and we have programs in all of our 34 facilities across the county, and really something for everybody. So I encourage people to check that out. And we have an ongoing registration happening right now for our summer camps, and they are filling up quickly, and usually by April most of them have sold out or at capacity. So I encourage families to sign up if they are interested as early as possible, because they're wonderful programs.
And how do we do it? How do we sign up?
You call 240-777-6840 or visit our website, and that's actually the best way to do it to find out about our programs and services is montgomerycountymd.gov/rec.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
thank you for bringing good news regarding your department. Good luck with the budget, and we'll see you again soon. We're going to take a short break, but don't go away, because we do have another department director that is going to come and sit and talk with us on this 101. Welcome back to 101. I'm Lorna Virgili, and this second half of the show, we're actually sitting down with the Director of the Office of Human Rights, Jim Stone. Welcome. Thank you for sitting with me for the very first time. How are you today, sir?
I'm well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's get started with your department, the Office of Human Rights.
Yes.
A lot of county residents do not know very well what it is that your office does and executes. So can you tell us a little bit of the background of the Office of Human Rights?
Well, first of all, we are 50 years young. Let's just say that 50 years ago, actually 2010, we began the process of trying to understand how our community was growing, how it was evolving, becoming more and more diverse. And so the office was born out of that situation. And so now today we are the office that in fact entertains complaints of discrimination in housing, public accommodations, and also in employment. And so if someone feels they've been discriminated against in this county, they have hopefully the opportunity to come to our offices and make us aware that you feel you've been discriminated against. And we try our very best to do the investigation, to render a finding, and also follow through the process of if someone has violated the law, that in fact justice will occur for those who are the victims of that particular act of discrimination. So that's our charge. Of course, it's free of charge, being those of us who live in the county, and we deal with all county issues under housing, under employment, and other public accommodations.
What have been lately the most common complaints, perhaps, that you have received through your office from county residents?
Well, we continue to have complaints. Number one area is going to be employment, and the issue that seems to come up more often now than had been previously has been the issue of dealing with concerns of national origin, dealing with concerns relative to culture and language. And so we've had a real struggle with people trying to understand that this is, in fact, the law of this county, that all persons are entitled to be able to work and earn a living in a fair and equitable kind of way. So it's been very interesting as that has occurred. The other thing, by the way, is in the housing area is on the issue of dealing with disabilities. As we get older in this county, all of us, if you're not someone who may check disability as your category today, you will at some point in time in the future. And so we're finding ourselves in a situation where many more people are trying to find places to live that may not be accessible. Livable is a term we use today. And so that now becomes also a major issue for us to deal with.
With the county for the first time being a minority majority
Yes.
after the
Yes.
2010 census, have you seen an uptake in complaints perhaps related to all of these issues that you've been mentioning?
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the things that people see is that they now know that they are, in fact, a viable force in this community in a very positive kind of way, I would like to say, because we now share our investment in this community, our involvement in it, our ownership of it. And so I think it just follows that many more people are aware of their rights, and they in fact are trying to make sure that those rights are secured by agencies like ourselves to enforce. And so people coming to us and these asking the question, this happened to me. I'm not so sure it was wrong or right, but can you kind of help me through all of this? And we're giving those people that kind of attention. So yes, we see an uptick. We're hoping to do more and more education out in the community as well to sort of curb the tide on these kinds of complaints. But we're working on that as we go along.
Talking about that community involvement that you're doing recently, you had a very successful, let me add, event in downtown Silver Spring, this bullying symposium. How did that originate? And I believe it was, what, about 400 people in attendance, correct?
Exactly. This was a program actually of our Committee on Hate Violence that's established to look at these issues throughout the county and advise both the county executive, members of the administration, and the county council about ways that we may be able to prevent and better educate our community about issues of hate violence occurring in Montgomery County. And so they saw this happening. Many of us were able to see it, as I said before, on television and certainly looking at it through newspaper articles. The level of violence had in fact increased for some of these incidences that were occurring. That was part of that's so different than it was for many of us when we grew up. And bullying is, like, again, not anything new, but this was different in that regard. And so the stakes were very high. And so the Committee on Hate Violence wanted to do something in this community to begin to help people understand that the incident of these accidents were happening more and more, number one. The fact that they were occurring in our schools, number two. And then number three was the fact that they were having such dire consequences. And so it was their efforts then to create this opportunity for people to come together and to hear and listen, and also to contribute to a discussion, a community dialogue, if you will, about what was going on in our schools, and more importantly, outside of our schools too, in our parks and places that we gather. And so the idea was, let's bring the community in one place. Let's begin to put together a panel of the experts, the best we can find in our community and beyond, and kind of talk about this issue. And let's kind of lay it out in a way that people see what we're talking about, they can understand it, and also be able to respond about their own incidences that may have occurred in their family members, their children, etc. And so it was a time to come together and share those incidents with us, and it was a very fruitful conversation, I think.
Who were the participants, and what was the dynamic of the dialogue itself? Because it sounds like this is sort of an initial step. And was youth included in it?
Youth were there. As a matter of fact, two were on our panel. Two of our young people from high school were on our panel and kind of talked about their issues. And I think it was really significant that they did so. But in the audience were you and me, members of our community, trying to hear and understand what was being talked about, but more importantly, what they could do. And the idea was this: can we supply, rather, very unique but also simple kinds of ideas that actually work, that people could use, that they could go home and take and be able to then understand and say, okay, this is happening to my son or my daughter. I heard this at a symposium. Maybe I can try it for them and my situation. That was the whole sort of concept behind the symposium. And we think we began the first step anyway toward getting that done.
We're going to talk about next steps when we come back. We got to take a small break. Don't go away. We'll be right back with the Director of the Office of Human Rights for Montgomery County, Jim Stowe. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this edition of 101. I'm Lorna Virgili, and we're going to wrap up our conversation with the Director of the Office of Human Rights for Montgomery County, Jim Stowe. Jim, we were talking about that very successful bullying symposium you just had recently. Next steps, what is next? Obviously, this first encounter was for the community to open up, bring about ideas, concerns, changes in the aspects of bullying and violence within youth in the county. But what is next? Where are we moving forward to?
Well, two things. One is that each participant who left the symposium was given a resource notebook The committee worked very, very hard in creating some opportunities for materials and resources to be gathered together in one place. Certainly was not any kind of all-encompassing kind of notebook, but at least some good materials to start with for communities to take with them home. And so that's the first place. They now have in their possession a resource guide that they can in fact call up by way of internet and websites and find out more about that particular idea or concept and try to apply it if in fact it works for them. Second thing is this: we now have information out there in the community. We want to come back in a year later and kind of see whether or not what we put out there, we have information and we have updates, etc., is resonating with people, is working, is in fact having some impact in their homes, in their communities, in their schools. And so that's the kind of next step for us. The third thing is this, and kind of a little add-on to the whole piece is this: we're going to keep an active website on the Office of Human Rights' website to ensure that new ideas that come up, again, best practices that also occur, we continue to update this listing, that again, we can keep our community informed about ideas that are working. And that really is a premium. What is working? Not rhetoric, but what is working and having some impact in people's lives. So that's going to be our goal.
If I were the parent of a minority child or student in Montgomery County Public Schools, and even if it was not a minority student, and I suspect that my child has been a victim of a hate crime and been bullying due to that, what is the best route? Go to your office or MCPS?
They certainly can call us, but MCPS does have a hotline that is available then for young people who feel that may be the case, that they can call up and be a part of that. And I was remiss in not saying that our schools are doing a great job already. So this is not about what our schools are not doing, but this is more about what we can do better. And so it is in with that, keeping with that kind of idea that we in fact are offering up ourselves, our website again as a source of reference, and also, as I said before, the reference notebooks. We have some yet in our offices, by the way, so people want those. We certainly have some available to give to people. They are free to use. And so again, they can call MCPS, their hotline there, and or call our offices as well.
All right. We're going to get your phone number at the end of the show.
Yes.
Before we do that, let's talk about the Civil Rights Bus Tour that you've been doing for how many years now?
Been doing for about 7 years altogether, but the last 3 years here in Montgomery County. It is a tour I think is so important that we do. It is, for many of us who are in the civil rights work, it's a pilgrimage kind of opportunity for those of us who sojourned in this particular work, but for our entire community, I mean our entire community, it's a chance to try to go back and relive, retrace some of the steps of many of our freedom fighters that had they not done what they did many years ago in the 60s particularly, we would not be sitting here today. You and I assure you of that, would not be sitting here today. But having said that, one of the things that we're doing is this. We're going to leave here on the 2nd of April, headed down then to Atlanta, Georgia, which is the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It also was where he had his first pastorate there at Ebenezer Baptist Church along with his father. Of course, the birth home is still there and will maintained by the Park Service, and also is the final resting place of Dr. King as well as Coretta Scott King, and also the Center for Nonviolence and Social Change there in Atlanta. We'll leave there, headed down then to Tuskegee, Alabama, to Tuskegee University, the home of the famed Tuskegee Airmen, and find out what took place there and have an understanding about that as well. Also, the laboratory for George Washington Carver is there and still intact as he left it when he passed away many years ago, and also the home of Booker T. Washington. Leaving there, then headed then to Montgomery, Alabama, obviously ground zero for the Montgomery bus boycott and Rosa Parks and what took place there. Dr. King also had his first full pastorates there at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And so we get a chance to kind of have that experience as well. We leave there, then headed down to Selma, Alabama, ground zero for the Voters' Rights Act and the famous march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and Bloody Sunday. We'll get a chance then to reenact that whole process and kind of have a sense of what it felt like. And along the way, we'll have a few people who were actually there to kind of share with us what it felt like on that Sunday back in 1967. And so you have a chance to kind of understand what that all was all about as well. And then we're leaving there, headed down then to Birmingham, Alabama. And this is a place so very special for our young people because, again, had it not been for the young people coming out of school, these are middle school and high schoolers who really took over the movement, it would not have happened. Because at that point in time, the adults had sort of settled back into their jobs and kind of routine daily lives, but our kids took over the movement. And then we head from that point then down then to Memphis, Tennessee, and have a chance to relive what happened at the Lorraine Motel, excuse me, that was such an important part of our history. A valid part of our history, as it turns out.
Well, just by describing it, you're giving me goosebumps, and I want to go with you. But
let's roll. We're saying get on the bus. Get on the bus.
Tell us about what, if interested, this is obviously open to county residents.
Open to the entire community.
To the entire community. How many days in total?
Total of 5 days.
5 days.
That includes 4 hotel nights. All inclusive in the price that we can give you. Just give our officers a phone call, and we've been more than glad to get you on board with that. We do have yet some seats available. We'd love to fill every single seat, and so we're asking everybody to get on the bus. This year, I should tell you real quickly that we're going to also stop in Cincinnati this year on the way back at the Freedom Center, which is the birthplace of the story of slavery in this country that's told.
And this is the week of spring break.
Spring break,
so the kids
April
are
2nd through the 7th, they're out of school.
We have primary elections, so if you go, make sure you get your absentee ballot before you get on the bus. And just to wrap it up and finalize, give us the phone number to your office. It's very important for everybody to contact you for this or whatever civil rights issues.
240-777-8450. That's 240-777-8450.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry we run out of time. It is so much fun to sit down and speak with you. So for all of you watching us today, thank you for tuning in. And for any information regarding Montgomery County, always remember to visit our website, montgomerycountymd.gov. Thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Arvigelli.